everybody, it's Chris from Rottweiler Performance, and we wanted to take an opportunity to make a video for you guys explaining how we properly break in a motorcycle. Now, we're really lucky that we have this beautiful dyno facility here, so we can actually do proper break-ins absolutely perfectly, and we're going to tell you how we do that in this video. We post a lot on Instagram and Facebook on breaking in different motorcycles to kind of show that we've got them and we're doing some things with them. And a lot of customers will post in there and they'll ask us what is the best way to break in my new motorcycle. And obviously the best way is on a dyno because you can control everything. You can load the bike exactly the way you want to load it for a controlled period of time. You can control the temperatures, you can control the loads, you can control everything there is about it, and you really don't have to go anywhere. It's not as fun as riding a motorcycle, but you have the satisfaction of knowing that the motorcycle is absolutely perfectly broken in. And so in this video, what we want to do is kind of explain how we do it, and you guys can take that information and maybe try to best replicate that in the real world if you can. So the first step that we do is we dump the stock oil out of the motor. Now it's Motorex, but it's just basic Motorex. It's non-synthetic, and that's basically what they consider break-in oil. Motorex has a deal with KTM where if KTM puts a sticker on the bike and says this bike requires Motorex, and they put it in their manuals that you put Motorex in the bike, that they will supply them with free Motorex in the engines when they come off the factory line. A lot of people have the misconception that you have to run Motorex. You really don't. Any good synthetic oil is fine. And so what we do is we dump the stock oil and we actually replace it with MAXIMA break-in oil. Now this is a mineral-based oil that is without all the fancy jargon. I wasn't prepared to give you guys the fancy jargon that MAXIMA would have given me. Maybe I can read the back of the bottle. Mineral-based four-stroke engine oil specifically formulated for breaking in engines with flat tappet camshafts, roller elements, and where MAXIMA anti-wear performance is needed, and a bunch of other fancy words. So this is a mineral oil that's basically going to give you a better ring to cylinder seal. It's gonna extend the lifetime of your oil changes because you're going to get a better ring seal, less blow by, and it's going to maximize the amount of horsepower that the engine is going to put out in conjunction with a good break-in cycle. And so part of this was learned from the racing industry, where you have a full race bike. You can't exactly take it out on the freeway and break it in. You know, a brand new motor's been rebuilt, and track time is very expensive and cumbersome. So a lot of guys, what they'll do is they'll put them on the dyno and they'll run them through these heat cycles. And then what we do is we run multiple heat cycles of 20 minutes each, cycling the bike up and down. Usually on this bike, I've been going between 2,000 RPM and 6,000 RPM. Typically it's between 3 and 6. And what we do is we're able to put a brake load on the dyno where I can press a button, it'll start loading the drum, and it'll start, which in turn loads the tire, which in turn loads the engine. And so we can put a brake percentage in there. Typically we operate between 20 and 30%, and we can load the bike and run it down to whatever RPM we choose, and then we'll run it back up to 6. And the way we also do this is we put a cruise control device on the throttle. We pin the throttle at maybe 20%, and then we just basically sit for 20 minutes board stiff and cycle that button on and off. As soon as it hits 6, we turn on the brake drum, we bring it back down to 2,000 RPM, pretty much the lowest RPM the thing will lug at. This one goes down about 2, bring it up to 6. And we will do that for 20 minutes, and then we will shut the bike down and let it completely cool to the touch, basically when you come back and it's cold. And then we'll do this multiple times. Minimum for us is about 3 times, and typically on the 3rd or 4th time, we'll start running it to higher and higher RPMs. We do all of this in 4th gear. So we'll start to cycle it maybe between 4,000 and 7,000, and then maybe we go to 5,000 and 8,000, depending on the motor and where the red line is. Okay, now that the boring stuff is over with, we're going to drop the break-in oil and change out for the Pro Plus synthetic. Now, I'm going to give you a hint that Maxima's not really going to like very much, but this break-in oil, save it. We've used it on these bikes right here, 890 Duke, 790 ADV, 890 ADV, and FE 501. So we've reused this oil over and over and over. You're not running it for very long. It's not like you've run the oil for 5,000 miles and you're doing a change. So save the oil, use it to break in one of your other bikes. So at this point, we're going to change oil, put this synthetic MAXIMA Pro Plus in there, and then we're going to do some dyno runs, get to the fun stuff. Alrighty then, so we got the thing broken in on the Maxima break-in oil, the mineral oil. We've got the new synthetic oil put in, and we're ready to rock and roll with this thing. She's been perfectly broken in. You couldn't do it any better way. And we're going to be running an air-fuel ratio monitor on this thing, basically a wideband O2. We're going to see what the AFRs are putting out on this bike. But at this point, we're ready to rock and roll and do some dyno pulls in fourth gear wide open throttle and let you guys know what this baby puts out. So I don't know about you, but I'm excited. This is the first time I've seen it too. So let's go. All I can say is, wow. This bike is incredibly impressive and is a huge improvement over the previous models. How do I know that? Previous models baseline, the 2017 through 20 US models put out a max horsepower at the tire of 120 horsepower. We're looking at 139 and change on this bike, a 20 horsepower increase stock. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking right now. KTM's website says 160. So they actually claim 118 kilowatts, which in metric horsepower translates to 160 metric horsepower. That is measured at the crank. We get a lot of questions about that. You know, you guys are claiming 140 horsepower and KTM's claiming 160. What happened? That's at the crank. It's also metric, and it's also on their best day. They're a marketing machine, so they're going to claim some really good numbers. The bottom line is, on a dyno, is what it's putting at the tire. Now, we are basically reporting in SAE, which is pretty much understood as the common way, at least in the United States, they're the most common way to report horsepower. So we're SAE at the tire, 140 horsepower. SAE at the tire on the previous models was 120. Now, on this screen here, I've got our 2017 1290 Super Adventure R with our Stage 6 on it in blue. And this bike stock completely smokes that, especially in the mid-range around 6,000 RPM and all the way up. This bike is phenomenal. I'm really, really excited to get this thing out on the road and off the dyno. KTM did a fantastic job with the fueling system on this. We're looking at it in the fueling. If we bring up the double graph right here, the fueling on this bike is 14.7 across the board, and it starts to come out of closed loop. You can see right here at about 5,500 RPM, it starts to come out of closed loop, and there's open loop, and it is 13.2 air fuel ratio all the way across the board, and then gets slightly richer at the top, which is just fine. That is some of the best fueling I've seen from these bikes yet. Typically, on the 790 Adventures, 890 Adventures, they get very rich for some reason in that area. Doesn't hurt them, but it's there's a little bit of loss of horsepower, so we actually pull a little bit of fuel in that area. This bike is fueled absolutely perfectly. I'm really impressed. So I think if you're interested in this bike, I think it's going to be well worth your while to pick one of these up. I'm really impressed with KTM on what they did with the horsepower, and this has been a lot of fun. So I hope you guys have had fun. If you have, please smash that subscribe button. That really helps us quite a bit. And check out our other videos. We're going to be doing a number of videos on this bike. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.